Hi, this is Tom with Coherent Logic, and today I'm going to take you through an advanced data acquisition example using the Legal Entity Identifier client framework. Here we have a URL that we need to construct the equivalent using Java, and that's going to be pasted below. So I have a Spring Framework application context. I'm going to get a bean from that called the local cache enabled query builder. This particular instance of Query Builder has an InfiniSpan local cache assigned to it. What happens is, once a call is made to a web service and the data is returned, that data is stored in a cache. If the same query is built up a second time, it will not make the call to the web service, but instead it will return the data from the cache. In this example, we have an event listener, which is assigned here. I will explain what that looks like shortly. But we want to take a look at what this data looks like, and we'll just print that out, and that's done in this line. We have a couple more steps to do, and we can run this example. Okay, what I'd like to do in the subsequent code is iterate from 0 to 4, and we're going to invoke essentially the same query that you can see above. We do it a little bit differently here in that we use a replace path and a replace query method, but the query itself, the URL that this is composing, is the same as you see here. So what we have is LEI records, again, that's here. And then we add on an LEI with this value. So it's the same. What will happen here is, since the data has already been cached, it's not going to go and make the web service call and convert that into an LEI response. It'll just take that from the cache and return it to us. We now have 3 steps to go. Let's take a look at what that event listener looks like. Here's the code for the event listener. Whenever this is invoked, we get an event type. In this case, we're going to take event types of method ends, and we're going to print out some information about the event type itself, the total millis at that particular step, as well as the total millis overall. If the event type is not method ends, what we'll do is just print out the event type. We now have 2 steps to go. So in the next step, we need to create an application context. The application context definition is described here. We have a component scan, which is executed on 2 packages. The first one is for the local cache configuration, and the second one is for the LEI client itself. We have a query builder prototype bean. What will be assigned to it is a REST template, which has been configured already for us, and then a local cache that's assigned here. The local cache is an InfiniSpan local cache, and as we said before, it will be used to prevent subsequent calls for the same data being executed against the actual web services repeatedly. This last step I'm not going to go into detail on, but we need to do 2 things. We need to grab dependencies and import classes, and that's done there. So let's run this example and take a look at the results. So there we have the results, and in this example we could see that the very first time this is executed, we have method begins. We're going to have a pre-cache check. We want to see if the data has already been cached. It is in fact a cache miss, which is expected because it's the first time that we're running this and it has a local cache. And then the method ends, and in this case, the very first time that we executed this query, it took 1.2 seconds, roughly. We can see what the data looks like here. And now we can take a look at the resultant calls for the same data, and that starts here. We're going to do that from 0 to 4 in this example here. And we can see that the method begins. We have a pre-cache check, and it's a cache hit in this case. So we can then take a look at the method ends. The amount of time that it took at that step is actually just 1 millisecond, and that's because we already have the data in the cache. We do that for the remainder of this iteration, and we get down to here. It's basically added on 4 milliseconds to this for the calls that we have here. So this concludes our example of the LEI Query Builder API. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing with LEI data and the challenges you're facing. So if you like, put those in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Talk to you soon.